All right, Corey, it's hockey night in Canada once more. We're taking a look at NHL 23. This is by EA, and it is the yearly drop for hockey. Nothing strange there, but I have to begin this by saying I was invited to the reveal event actually online. They had a bit of a stream, and they showed off some of the new features that were supposed to be in this year's game, and that had me excited, actually excited about hockey for the first time in a while, I have to admit. But one of the biggest features they added that comes apparent right off the hop is the inclusion of the women's hockey leagues and the idea that you can finally now play some of these superstars and play out some of these other leagues. There's a huge amount of leagues put into this game, which isn't necessarily new, but the idea that the women's league, all the sports and stats kind of info about them is brought over properly into this game,
Long
so they're
overdue.
competitive. And yeah, it's been so long that I think that's been requested. I'm surprised it really took until this time. But what I can say jumping into that gameplay is just that, well, it feels just about the same, which I think is probably proper. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. It's maybe just a little bit agile, but I'm not sure if that's just my kind of expectation instead of my perception. But aside from that, I'm a little bit of a layman here when it comes to these games. I haven't played a whole lot of NHL since about 20, I believe. It may have been a little earlier than that. So I'm really far behind on the features. But what I can see is that the graphical capability of these consoles, I'm on the Series X,
Yep.
it brings it to a near lifelike level. I know people have been saying that for a long time now too, but between my degrading eyes and the upgrading hardware we're dealing with, some of it looks just about real.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they've done a good job in the presentation of this year's game. I mean, I'm an NHL diehard. I play every year to varying degrees of absolute madness to complete enjoyment. It is the kind of the same bag of tricks every year with these sports games. So, we're hoping for the new additions to be what changes this game completely. NHL 23, again, like you said, we're getting the inclusion of IIHF women's players into Hockey Ultimate Team and into this different leagues and franchise mode, which is really nice to see. If you're a Be a Pro fan this year, that game mode was actually untouched completely. It needs some work, unfortunately. Be a Pro has definitely been a mode that has been lacking. It's definitely one of the more fun ones to play, especially when it first came out, but over the last few years, it has gotten pretty stale. Franchise mode has added a few things, but again, overall, we're basically getting the same offering here in most of the game modes. Like you said, visually this game looks good, so that is really nice to see. We're getting some new goalie animations, some new kind of last ditch player animations that kind of brings this level of realism to the game. It's not necessarily so we can score these unbelievable highlight goals every time, but sometimes just to make it seem more like a hockey game. I mean, every year that's kind of what they're pushing for. We're trying to get that realism every year in and out, and it's just, I don't know, man. NHL 23 has been a bit of a disappointment for me overall. I've enjoyed some of the changes, but most of them, for the most part, really don't seem to take much of an effect, or doesn't really feel that different. We're getting some new X Factor abilities this year, but they didn't really play much of a factor in last year's game. So it's frustrating because I want to enjoy this game more, but even after playing it just for the bit of time we played over the last week or so, it's been challenging for me to want to keep going. It's tough because, like I said, it's a game that I want to enjoy. I'm a huge hockey fan. I'm a huge sports fan. But when we're getting the same offering year in, year out with little changes, I mean, realistically, if I'm telling somebody to get a hockey game, get NHL 22. There wasn't that many changes in this year's game. Save yourself some money instead of getting this one. I don't want to trash it anymore, Scott. I think we got to score this. If you're going to score NHL 23, what are you going to give it, man?
Well, it is a competent NHL game. It works just fine, but
Yeah.
like you say, there's a huge amount of holes in what you would kind of expect the upgrades to be. And although it is trying to strive for that realism, I kind of wanted to play a little bit more of an arcadey idea. I wanted to, can I make the Maple Leafs play the Canadian women's hockey team. Well, no, you can't, unfortunately. I tried to get the OHL, our own local Barrie Colts, to play another NHL team. No, that can't work either. So I think I'm expecting a little bit too much out of this kind of release. And although I did have a good time with it, it's just kind of, again, the regular par for the course. I have to give this a 7. It is capable, but it's just not incredibly exciting.
You know what? And our two different perspectives on how we approach this franchise is going to be where the difference in our scores are. I think 7 is a legitimate score for somebody that likes to casually play this game in and out. Doesn't really pick up on the big changes, but does notice, things are different year in and year out. As where I kind of take a finer tooth comb at some of the features of the games, especially in the game modes that I enjoy. This year, relatively no change whatsoever. Not enough. Again, long overdue to see the women's players in the game. It's really nice to see them in there. They deserve to be there. That's a huge addition. Visually, the game looks great. But honestly, I'm not going to play this game any more than I'm playing NHL 22 right now. So I got to give this one a 6.
The ceremonial team picture, I still think of Brian Trottier with the Penguins sprawled out after all those years as a veteran.
So hard to get to.
Yeah.